Hello, my dear friends. I'm always very moved when we read the end of Bezos HaBracha, which we're going to read on Simchas Torah. In 1970, my family was in Eretz Yisrael. My father, Olav Hashem, was on sabbatical leave from his shul. The entire family went to Eretz Yisrael. We lived in Rechavia on Rehov Al Charizi. Near where we lived was a street called Ushishkin, and on Ushishkin was the Beit Knesset HaNasi, the shul of the Nasi of the state, the president of the state of Israel. It was called Beit Knesset HaNasi because the presidents of Israel davened there. And when we were in Eretz Yisrael in 1970, Zalman Shazar was the president of the state of Israel. We went there for Simchas Torah. There were many people would go for Simchas Torah to celebrate Simchas Torah with the Nasi. My father or mother wanted to be there, so my brother, my sister, myself, we went. We joined them. And who had the Aliyah of Chosin Torah, the last Aliyah in Bezos HaBracha? It was Zalman Shazar, the Nasi. And after the end of davening, there was a big kiddush, and Zalman Shazar spoke. And it was such a powerful speech that he delivered, or drasha that he delivered. The end of Bezos HaBracha, which he read at Chosin Torah, describes how Moshe Rabbeinu, the very end of his life, God tells Moshe Rabbeinu, go up onto Har Nevo, go up onto the mountain of Nevo, and look at Eretz Canaan, look at Eretz Yisrael. You can't go there. I'm not allowing you to go, but I want you to gaze at it. And God and then the Chumash describes how Moshe saw the Eretz Yisrael, its entire expanse. From Megillah to Adon, and from one side to the other, from the north and the east and the west and the south. And the Zalman Shazar, when he spoke, he described all those places that the Chumash speaks about, the Moshe saw. He knew Eretz Yisrael like the palm of his hand. So he spoke about all the different places and the significance of each part of Eretz Yisrael. And then he made the point that look how Moshe Rabbeinu, he pined to go into Eretz Yisrael. He was longing to go, but he couldn't go. But we have the tremendous Sukkos. After 2,000 years, we returned to Eretz Yisrael, and we could go to all these places that are mentioned in the Chumash, and that had a very profound and lasting effect on me. Every year when we read it, I remember it's very sentimental for me. So now there's a tremendous question, which is related to what I just said. That is, what was the purpose of God showing Moshe Rabbeinu Eretz Yisrael? It was like Chas v'Shalom. It was torturing him. So obviously, that wasn't the purpose, but that's what it would look like. It's like if somebody is on a diet and they love chocolate cake, and you say, "Hey, you love chocolate cake? Here's a chocolate cake. Take it, look at it, smell it. Don't take a bite." What was Moshe Rabbeinu? He davened so many times Veschanan to go into Eretz Yisrael, and God said, "No, can't go." So this is the last thing that the Torah tells us about Moshe Rabbeinu, is that God said, "Go up in the mountain, look at Eretz Yisrael, and then you'll die." And that's how it is described in the end of Hazino as well. That was it. He went up, and then the Yom Hashem Moshe saw every place. God tells him, you can't. This is the land that I promised to the others, but you're not going to go there. And then Moshe died. What was the purpose of doing that? So it seemed to me the purpose was because when you long for something and you think about it all the time and you can't get it out of your mind and you're pining for that, so then you remain connected to that at all times. Moshe Rabbeinu, even if he couldn't be in Eretz Yisrael, but seeing Eretz Yisrael and longing for it and having this passionate desire to go there, and he was pining to be able to be in Eretz Yisrael, that created a chibur. The word chibur means connection. He was mechuber, he was connected to Eretz Yisrael because he was in Yiddish they say platzing, he was chalashing. He just, his whole neshama wanted to be in Eretz Yisrael. So if he couldn't be there physically, but he could at least be mechuber, he could be connected. And the last thing he saw before he died, people see all sorts of things before they die. Moshe Rabbeinu, what did he see? He was on the mountain, he saw Eretz Yisrael, and that was his lifelong desire, at least from the time they left Mitzrayim, to be able to go into Eretz Yisrael. That's how he died. And because the significance is that created a connection. There's in Gush Etzion, my cousin took us Zevi Safer took Fegi and me to Gush Etzion. They have a visitor center, and if you haven't been there, you have to go. There's a video that's so moving. And it's a reenactment of part of the history of what happened in Gush Etzion. Gush Etzion was settled by Holocaust survivors. The Gush Etzion was built originally by earlier settlers who came to Eretz Yisrael, and that it was destroyed. It was in Jordanian territory, and it couldn't be sustained. And then I think it was after the Holocaust that there was a group of very idealistic Jews that attempted to rebuild the Gush area and the various cities, and they were surrounded by the Arabs, by the Jordanians, and they, with tremendous bravery, they protected the area. But then finally came to a point where they were running out of ammunition, so they sent the men and women, they sent to the wives and the women, they sent to Yerushalayim, and they remained behind a group of about 150 men that were going to protect the Gush. But they didn't have any more bullets, so they sent 35 men, went to Yerushalayim, risked their lives to travel to Yerushalayim to try to bring back bullets to the Gush. They had their munitions, they came back, but it was all done very secretly. And then on the way, they were spotted by a Jordanian shepherdess, and they had a big argument. They should murder her, so that she shouldn't go back to the Jordanians and reveal their location, but they felt, how can they murder an innocent person? So they let her go. Sure enough, she went and she told the Jordanian soldiers where they were. They went and they massacred every single one of them. These were known as the Lamed Hay. There's the Lamed Vav Tzadikim, the 36 Tzadikim. These are the Lamed Hay Tzadikim. These are the 35 Tzadikim. So, and they're buried in that area. So it's a very holy place. If a person wants a place to daven, I think that's such a holy place with the Lamed Hay. So so what happened was, a few days later, the Jordanians overcame the Jewish defenders of the Gush, and they told them that they wanted to take their photographs. They had a photographer, and they lined them up in a courtyard. There was about, I think, 130 Jews that would still survive, and then while they were standing there thinking they were being photographed, the Jordanians took out their rifles and they shot and they murdered every single one of them. Hashem Yimkom Damam. Such Ritzicha, Rotzchim, atrocities. So in any event, after that period, then that was 3 days before the War of Independence in Israel, and Israel declared their independence. Subsequently, the Gush was not recaptured until 1967 during the 6-Day War. From 1948 to 1967, every year on the yahrzeit, the wives and the children of the members of Gush would go to a mountain. There was a mountain in Yerushalayim, and they would be able to see from the mountain a solitary tree that was standing in the Gush. That tree was an oak tree. That was 700-year-old oak tree, and they were able to see it. And that was the symbol of the Gush. It was a semel for them, very powerful. And every year they would go and they would yearn and they would cry and they would hope that it should be able to be returned to the Gush. And in the end, they were in the 67. They were able to be returned once again. You could go see the tree yourself. It's such a moving event, to see the tree that they were yearning, that they saw every year at the yahrzeit. So I would say that the yearning created a chibur. The fact that they could still see the tree, they were still connected to the Gush. And it's maybe because they were so religiously inspired that the Rebbeinu Shalom, that was a tremendous sukkos, and the Rebbeinu Shalom arranged that the Gush should come back into the hands of the families of whose fathers and husbands were murdered in 1948. And during the 3 weeks, we say Al Naharas Bavel. It's a capital of Tehillim, and it speaks of Al Naharas Bavel. We were standing on the banks of the Babylonian River, and we were looking in the distance. We were able to. They were looking for Bizachreinu Asiyon. They remembered the Eretz Yisrael. What was the value of that? It was the same thing, because they were looking to see, they were pining, they were yearning to be able to return to Eretz Yisrael, and that created a permanent chibur, that the Eretz Yisrael was not lost. They didn't forget. They were in Galus for so many years, but they always stayed connected to Eretz Yisrael. You know, the words of Hatikva are so moving, and it moves even Jews that are completely secular. Everybody is moved by Hatikva, and Hatikva was written by Naftali Hertz Imber. He grew up in a religious family, but then I think he became a secular Jew. The Hatikva is devoid of any religious content. He doesn't talk about God. He doesn't talk about Hashgacha. But I believe that the emotion that he invested into that poem, which became the national anthem of the state of Israel, the reason why it's so powerful is because deep down, even though he became a secular Jew, but deep down he was a Jewish neshama, and it was a religious feeling, the nationalistic feeling that Jews around the world have for Eretz Yisrael. It is rooted in religious feeling. It's not just because they have the desire, the Jewish homeland. It's unheard of, and there's no other nation in the world where they're exiled, and then they still, years later, they're still hoping to come back to their homeland. After 1 or 2 generations, it's all lost. But the Jewish people, the reason why they yearn for Eretz Yisrael is because of the connection between the Jewish soul and Eretz Yisrael. And that's what Naftali Hertz Imber describes so magnificently. Nefesh Yehudi Homiyah. As long as the Jewish soul is still alive, the soul of the Jew yearns to return to Eretz Yisrael. Old law of the Sukkos. Shnas Alpayim. For 2,000 years, the hope that we could return has not been lost. And where does that come from? It comes from the Nefesh Yehudi Homiyah, from the Jewish soul. So the fact that Klal Yisrael, the poem describes the reality that Klal Yisrael, for 2,000 years, our Babbas and our Zaydas, they were davening and praying and hoping to be able to return to Eretz Yisrael. That maintained the connection that we had as Jewish people to Eretz Yisrael. So I think that there is a very important message here that we could take away. Yomim Noraim is coming to an end. And we all were inspired in Yom. We inspired in Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Sukkos. But then what happens is the Yom is over, and then we go back to normal life, and it's just everything disappears. But there's 2 ways to take leave. There's one way to leave and say, I'm sorry, it's been nice meeting you. Maybe we'll meet again sometime in the future, and the connection is severed. But if you leave with a sense of longing and pining and hoping and remembering, so then we stay connected to the madregas, to all the levels of elevation that we achieved during Yom Noraim and the Yantif of Sukkos. With the Yahrzeit, what's the significance of Yahrzeit? Why do the Jews make such a big deal about Yahrzeit? It's because when a parent dies, if you yearn for the parent, if we remember, comes the year of the Yahrzeit when the parent passed away, and you remember them, and you feel the pain is still there that you don't have your parents, and you can't talk to them, and you can't discuss with them, and you can't share with them. That creates a continued connection to our parents, and therefore that's why it's so important to observe the Yahrzeit, and we say Kaddish and we light a candle, because we want our parents to continue to inspire us, even though they're no longer alive. And the same thing with Yizkor. We say Yizkor is a way of remembering who they were, because this way we stay inspired. So as we take leave of the Yantif of Sukkos, and there's a minute that when you leave the Sukkah, you kiss the Sukkah goodbye. So there's 2 ways to leave. You can leave the Yantif and say, okay, it's been a pleasure, so long, see you later. But the real way to do it is that when we take leave, it's with pain and with remorse. And we know we can't stay on the madrega that we were when we said Hashem Elokim at the end of Yom Kippur. We can't sustain that during the course of the year. We can't feel the same way when we go back to the workforce and we're busy with our jobs and everything else that's going on. We can't feel the sense of elevation that we felt when we're sitting in the Sukkos surrounded by the Ananei HaKavod. But even so, if we feel a longing to return to that, Mirz Hashem, it'll be another year. We'll be able to come back again to the Noraim and to Sukkos, and we look forward to that, and we yearn for that, and we pine for that. So then we're still connected to the religious experience that we had during this entire period of time. So as we close the Yontif, and when we read the Zos HaBracha, we read how Moshe Rabbeinu, he stood on the mountain yearning for Eretz Yisrael. The same, and you'll remember the story that you remember my description of the members of the Jewish community, of the Gush community, how they stood on the mountain yearning to return, and in fact they were able to return because that was a tremendous sukkos. They never lost the connection. If we'll leave the Yontif that way with a sense of yearning, that we want to return and want to come back, then Mirz Hashem, the impact and the inspiration of the Yom Noraim and Sukkos will remain with us, at least to some extent. It will, in a powerful way, it will remain with us throughout the entire year.